Welcome to the program. You're with Arise News. Ahead over the next 30 minutes, all the global headlines you need to know about in Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I'm Folake Adesugba. Arise News now begins. And our top stories: U.S. President Donald Trump calls Saudi Arabia's response to the murder of journalist Jamal Khashoggi the worst cover-up ever. Plus, a viral outbreak at a New Jersey long-term medical care center kills 6 children and leaving a dozen more infected. In sports, outplayed Manchester United lose at home to Ronaldo's Juventus in Champions League. Our top story: U.S. President Donald Trump is criticizing the Saudi operation that killed journalist Jamal Khashoggi, calling it one of the worst in the history of cover-ups. Saudi Arabia has claimed Khashoggi, a writer for the Washington Post who wrote critically about Saudi Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman, died accidentally in a brawl at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul on October 2nd. But Turkish officials say a 15-man team tortured, killed and dismembered the writer, and say Saudi officials had planned the killing for days.
I have people in Turkey and I have people in Saudi Arabia and other places, and they're all coming back as we speak. They're heading back. I'll know, I think, everything in a very short period of time. It's a bad situation, but certainly President Erdogan was not complimentary of what happened. That was a terrible thing that happened. I want to see the facts first. Look, Saudi Arabia has been a really great ally. They've been one of the biggest investors, maybe the biggest investor in our country. They are doing hundreds of billions of dollars worth of investments, and so many jobs, thousands and thousands of jobs. And if you look at the other side, Iran, you look at what they've done to people: vicious, horrible. And that's no excuse for what happened with Saudi Arabia, no excuse whatsoever. But you take a look, it's a rough part of the world. It's a nasty place. It's a nasty part of the world. But if what happened, and if the facts check out, it's something that's very bad. At the same time, they have been a very good ally of ours. They've been helping us a lot with respect to Israel. They've been funding a lot of things. I will tell you that Russia and China would love to have that military order. I mean, I can say it to my Democrat friends, too. I mean, they would love this. Is $110 billion worth of military. And Russia would pick that up very quickly, and China would pick it up very quickly, and France would pick it up very quickly. France makes a lot of military equipment. It's a very competitive market. I did a great job when I sold them. That's why I went to Saudi Arabia first. I went to Saudi Arabia on the basis that they would buy hundreds of billions, many billions of dollars worth of things. And the ultimate number is around $450 billion, 110 for military, 450 billion. I think that's over 1 million jobs, 1 million to over 1 million jobs. So we do that, we're just hurting ourselves. We're just hurting ourselves. And I know that from a certain standpoint, you could also say, well, it doesn't matter, because it is a terrible thing. But we would be really hurting ourselves. We'd be hurting our companies. We'd be hurting our jobs. And so we'll see what happens.
Well, earlier Turkey's President Recep Tayyip Erdogan rejected Saudi Arabia's claim that Jamal Khashoggi's death was accidental. Erdogan described it as a ferocious, pre-planned murder. The Turkish leader also told Parliament in Ankara he wanted an independent international inquiry into the death of the Saudi Arabian dissident journalist's death on October the 2nd. Saudi Arabia claims Khashoggi died during a fight. The foreign minister has called the death a mistake, but denies that the crown prince ordered his death.
Before all, this murder might be committed in the consulate building, which is considered as Saudi Arabia's territory. But it should not be forgotten that this place is at the borders of the Republic of Turkey. Also, both Vienna Convention and international law wouldn't allow the investigation about such a brutal murder to be covered up by the diplomatic immunities army. As Turkey, we will follow this incident until the end. whatever is required by our laws and by international laws, we will carry it out. In fact, I'd like to make a call from here today. My call is to first and foremost Saudi Arabia's King Salman and to senior administration. Istanbul is where the incident took place. Therefore, my offer is for these 15 people plus 3 people, the 18 arrested, to be tried in Istanbul.
Well, President Recep Tayyip Erdogan said he wants Saudi Arabia to allow 18 suspects that it detained for killing Saudi writer Jamal Khashoggi to be tried in Turkish courts. Meanwhile, Vice President Mike Pence has said that the death of Saudi writer Jamal Khashoggi will not go without an American response and that the CIA director was in Turkey to review evidence in the case. Pence declined to discuss what punitive action the U.S. might take in response to the death of the Washington Post columnist and critic of the Saudi kingdom, who died on October 2nd at the Saudi consulate in Istanbul.
And for the brutal murder of Jamal Khashoggi at the Saudi consulate in Turkey was a tragedy for his family, for his loved ones, and for your colleagues here at the Washington Post. It was also an assault on a free and independent press. And our administration is determined to use all means at our disposal to get to the bottom of it. President Trump has already expressed his concern that there have been lies, there's been deception. He dispatched the Secretary of State to the region early on, and the director of the CIA is there in Turkey now reviewing the evidence. And we're going to follow the facts. We're going to demand that those responsible are held accountable. And once we have all the facts, President Trump will make the decision based upon the values of the American people and our vital national interests. But allow me to express my personal sympathies to his fiancée, to his loved ones, his family, and to all the colleagues here at the Washington Post who admired and cherished the life and example of Jamal Khashoggi. I know that when the CIA director returns, she'll be briefing the president, myself, and our entire team on what the Turks have assembled. But look, I want to assure all of your colleagues here, I want to assure the American people, we're going to get to the bottom of it. This brutal murder of a journalist, of an innocent man, of a dissident, will not go without an American response. And I expect without an international response. But we want to find out what happened. And President Trump has made it very clear that the full resources of our intelligence community, working with intelligence officials in Turkey, in our interactions with Saudi Arabia, and also with other countries around the world, is going to follow the facts, and then decisions will be made. Whether or not there are sanctions imposed, whether there's other actions taken, will be a decision for the President of the United States. And what President Trump has made it clear, Bob, is that we want to know what happened. We're going to follow the facts. We're going to get all of the evidence, and then the President will make a decision that reflects the values and the interests of the American people. We'll do what's best for the American people. We'll also make sure that the world knows the truth of what happened. And that's a promise to the family of Jamal Khashoggi, a promise to all of those who worked with him here at the Washington Post, all who cherish his example around the world.
The widow of former Russian agent Alexander Litvinenko, who was killed by radioactive poison in 2006, said that the death of Jamal Khashoggi should be a wake-up call to the world about the deadly behavior of authoritarian states. Speaking at an event at the British Parliament, Marina Litvinenko said her husband's murder and the example of the Russian president may have contributed to an environment in which governments think it's easy to kill people without provoking a strong response.
I think international community need to have a call wake up, because so many things what was just swallow when people did die, or like a journalist in Russia, we have a list of names, people who've been killed in Russia, and I think it's a maybe a good point to see if maybe something might change. For UK, it's just, of course, it's a sad situation, but after what happened to Skripal, it was a big discussion what kind of money we're accepting in UK, why this happened to Russian citizens who applied for political asylum, who was seeking for protection here, but was or killed or being attempted to be killed. Yes, and now we just don't know why these people decide it's so easy to kill people and don't have any response. Was it this example of Russian president of doing this? Question tag, yes, but it's exactly, it's very important to react for any kind of behavior and crime, because if you will make, it's nothing happen today, you will just be not sure what might happen tomorrow.
Now, President Donald Trump has said the U.S. has the dumbest immigration laws than anywhere in the world. He reiterated his assault on Democrats as the ones responsible for the nation's immigration woes, citing what he calls a catch-and-release system. Trump also referenced the Central American migrant caravan, estimated to include more than 7,000 people, which has been traveling north towards the U.S. border.
You see what's going on the border? You see how bad the immigration laws are given to us, thank you very much, by the Democrats. They're the dumbest laws anywhere in the world, dumbest immigration laws anywhere in the world. There's nothing. Catch and release. You know what catch and release is? You catch a criminal, you take his name, and you release him. Release him. You know where you release him? Into the United States. Supposed to come back for a trial 2 or 3 years later because the judges, you need thousands of judges. How do you have judges for that many people? It's so ridiculous. Another country doesn't do that. They say, I'm sorry, you can't come in. You can't come in. Once they set a foot on our land, it's like, welcome to the United States. It is the dumbest. We're changing it. But we need Republicans. We need people, or Democrats that have common sense, or Democrats that aren't going to listen to their bosses, because that's what it is. But you see what's happening, and you see the drugs they pour into our country through many different ways, but many through the southern border. And we're taking care of it. You also see what's coming up. We have a lot of people coming up. Can't let that happen. We either have a border or we don't. We need a wall. We put up some of the wall. We do it as fast as it comes. The USMCA, one of the strongest things about that, you're not going to have companies leaving anymore because they have a disincentive to leave. I don't want them to leave. Call me a nationalist if you'd like. But I don't want companies leaving. I don't want them firing all their people, going to another country, making a product, sending it into our country, tax-free, no charge, no tariff, no nothing. And in the meantime, we end up with empty plants, unemployment all over the place. We end up with nothing. So those deals are not happening anymore.
Now, with 2 weeks left before the midterm elections, President Donald Trump is ratcheting up the rhetoric to fire up the Republican base to come out and vote. Some of top subjects he's talked about during rallies around the country include announcing he's a nationalist, promising middle-class tax relief, and vilifying thousands of migrants in a caravan moving towards the U.S. border. Associated Press White House reporter Dick Miller says the way the president is framing this election is really about the consequences of Democratic control.
The way the president is framing this election is really about the consequences of Democratic control. He's trying to frame this as he's provided the American people X, and Democrats want to subtract X for those people. That is a classic midterm election strategy by a president, and one that we're seeing the president sort of deploy in these final 2 weeks going to election. Not something that he really wanted to embrace. He was critical of the quote-unquote globalists, but he didn't really embrace the term nationalist. And now we saw the president in the final 2 weeks say, sort of with the big neon sign saying, hey, I'm a nationalist. That was doesn't sort of change the minds of too many people, but this is a way for the president to sort of really try to message to his voters. From his perspective, this is a base election, and for a certain subset of voters who are Trump voters, this is the sort of thing they wanted to hear from him for quite some time, and he's hoping that will drive them back to the polls for Republicans down ballot. The caravan starting up a month or so before an election has really been a gift for the president. It's allowed him to bring back a lot of the rhetoric that he used in 2016 that animated voters to the polls. It puts him back in his comfort zone as a message that he's very comfortable delivering. He enjoys delivering, railing against illegal immigration, sometimes using coded language, sometimes often stretching the truth. But that gets back to what he believes it resonates with his base, his voters, and it's a base election from his perspective. That's what he needs to do from his perspective to get Republicans out of the polls. So the president, sort of in the final weeks of the campaign, and has been talking about this on and off for months, saying something was in the works that would do this, would extend some sort of permanent middle-class tax relief. This is an attempt it looks a little bit like, throwing spaghetti at the wall, seeing what sticks. It's a full court press by the president trying to see, trying to make sure that he's pushing all of those levers to try to get Republican voters out, because there is a subset of voters for whom taxes are a motivating factor, and the prospect of more money in their paychecks at the end of the month, at the end of every week, is the sort of thing that will drive them out to the polls. As of now, though, that's a promise that has really no chance of being fulfilled, certainly before Election Day, and even if you look at it into the lame duck, will be a very challenging thing to do as people start looking at the consequences of the first round of tax cuts. It's every election, the final 2 weeks, they get more heated, and you see that on both sides of the aisle. That means that for Americans paying attention at home, the next 2 weeks are going to be heated. They're going to hear some things they like, a lot of things they like, a lot of things they don't like, and then the hope for them will be that come November 7th, and they can return to their normal lives. Except once November 6th rolls around, and we get to November 7th, it's all going to be about 2020. This isn't going away. It's only sort of getting more intense from here all the way through the next presidential.
Now, a severe viral outbreak at a New Jersey rehabilitation center for medically fragile children has left 6 youngsters dead and 12 others sick, according to the state health department. There have been 18 cases of adenovirus at the Winnick Center for Nursing and Rehabilitation in Haskell, about 50 kilometers northwest of New York, the New Jersey Health Department said in a statement. The Centers for Disease Control and Prevention said in an email that no one was available to comment on how unusual it is for 6 adenovirus deaths in such a population of patients. The strain afflicting the children is usually associated with acute respiratory illness, according to the CDC, which on its website instructs health workers to report unusual clusters to state or local health departments. The New Jersey Department of Health didn't release the ages of the victims or address the severity of the illness in the other dozen cases. For a short break now, but do stay with us. Much more ahead, including the situation in conflicted Yemen. We'll be right back.
As a fashion writer, I know how quickly trends are created and changed. In business, it's no different. To stay ahead, I needed a plan flexible enough to meet my changing communication needs. More Business 2.0 didn't just give me voice and data in one package. I got a whole lot more. With More Business, setting up my website was no problem. But I'm not just a fashion writer. I also own a home decor store before I decided to open an accessory store. With my customized More Business plan, managing my staff's communication is easy, no matter how frequently they come or they go. With 9mobile's new online self-service this week, I could adapt my plans to include this.
From 2,000 Naira, choose a business bundle, customize your staff's voice and data lines, and enjoy a variety of add-on business services. Dial *200 *5# now to subscribe. More Business.
Welcome back to Rise News. We're live from Nigeria's capital, Abuja. I'm Folake Adesugba. Now, the UN humanitarian chief says the conflict in Yemen has left millions of people dependent on emergency food assistance, leading to a clear and present danger of an imminent and great big famine engulfing Yemen. Mark Lowcock warned that nearly half the population of Yemen, some 14 million people, could soon be on the brink of famine. An analysis, which was the subject of a briefing to the Security Council on Tuesday, says 3 million Yemenis are malnourished, including 1.1 million pregnant women and over 400,000 children.
At the end of last year, one aid agency estimated that 130 children under the age of 5 were dying every day from extreme hunger and disease, nearly 50,000 little children during the course of a year. While we await the results of the assessments now underway, we already know that a further year of war and economic crisis have pushed millions more Yemenis towards famine. So, just to be clear, my assessment, my advice to you, is that there is now a clear and present danger of an imminent and great big famine engulfing Yemen, much bigger than anything any professional in this field has seen during their working lives. Some people, perhaps including some of you, will be thinking, hang on a minute, they told us this before and it didn't happen. That's correct. We warned of famine in Yemen at the beginning of last year as part of the Secretary-General's call to action, which also flagged the risk in Somalia, South Sudan and northeast Nigeria. The response, a dramatic scaling up of the UN coordinated relief effort, helped mitigate the worst impact of the crisis then. Firstly, because the sheer number of people at risk. In my update to you last month, I said that an additional 3.5 million people are likely to become severely food insecure in the months ahead, added to the 8 million we're already reaching each month through the UN coordinated response effort. So that's a total of 11 million people. That's what I said on 21 September. We now think, Mr. President, that that estimate was wrong. Our revised assessment, the results of new survey work and analysis, is that the total number of people facing pre-famine conditions, meaning they're entirely reliant on external aid for survival, could soon reach not 11 million, but 14 million. That's half the total population of the country.
Meanwhile, the UN investigator on human rights in North Korea says he's very concerned that statements following Kim Jong-un's summits with the leaders of South Korea and the United States made no mention of human rights and ongoing widespread rights violations by Pyongyang. Thomas Ojea Quintana told the news conference that the abysmal human rights situation in North Korea has not changed from last year, despite the welcoming improvement in prospects for peace following the summits. Quintana urged North Korea to show commitment to the human rights agenda and allow him to visit the country and talk to its leaders. Let's have a look at business news now. The World Bank in 2006 pointed out that Nigeria needs an estimated 40 million jobs to cater for new market entrants by 2030. Since 1999, successive governments have put in place 4 broad economic plans: National Economic Empowerment and Development Strategy, Vision 2020, Transformation Agenda, and Economic Recovery and Growth Plan. Each of them promise to deliver sustainable economic opportunities by creating a favorable investment climate. But most Nigerians will conclude that these past economic programs have not fully delivered on their objectives. Now, the 24th Nigerian Economic Summit takes a look at what Nigeria must put in place to be on track. Business correspondent Jane Lawrence reports.
Oil production.
The former chief executive officer of the Nigerian Communications Commission, Ernest Ndukwe, gives his insight about the summit.
It's been a great event. As you know, this is the 24th annual session of this event. And this time around, it focuses mainly on how to get government working better than it is already. And we've had brilliant presentations, and I think if the cooperation of industry and government continues this way, and that we listen to what have been said and learn from experiences of other nations, I'm sure Nigeria will be much better for it.
Interestingly, within 2 decades, Brazil and China moved millions of their citizens from poverty to prosperity. Now, how did these winning models turn governance into sustainable economic opportunities, and why has Nigeria not been able to do so, has become a burning question for the government to ponder on. Jane Lawrence, Arise News.
And let's see what's brewing in the world of sports now. Cristiano Ronaldo marked his return to Old Trafford with a win as his Juventus side saw off Manchester United to move 5 points clear at the top of Champions League Group H. The former United star helped to set up Juve's winner in the 17th minute with his cross-reaching Paulo Dybala, who finished from close range. The Italian champions had several chances to extend their lead during the first half, where they were completely dominant, managing 10 shots to United's 1 and enjoying 70% of possession. United improved after the break, but only had one serious effort at goal when Paul Pogba let fly from the edge of the area, but saw his shot rebound off the post. The two sides will meet again at the Allianz Stadium on the 7th of November, when a win will send Juve into the last 16. United remain in second place, with their hopes of making the knockout stages boosted by Valencia's draw with Young Boys earlier on Tuesday. Well, that's it for this edition of Arise News Now. Thank you for being a part of the program. Do stay with us on the channel. I'm Folake Adesugba from the whole team here in Abuja and London. That's goodbye for now.